From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang. Malacañang on Thursday said all cabinet officials will continue to undergo performance evaluation even after President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has retained several key officials in the ongoing recalibration of his administration. In a Palace Press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said that the President's acceptance or rejection of courtesy resignations from cabinet members does not mark the end of the process. The palace official said a continuing performance evaluation will be carried out. President Marcos has recently ordered a series of assessments of his cabinet as part of a broader administrative recalibration. While some officials were retained, others were replaced based on performance and alignment with the administration's priorities. Last week, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, among the first to be retained, announced the third phase of the bold reset in the administration's ongoing performance evaluation, where the majority of the cabinet was retained. However, he said, the evaluation process is still ongoing, including for officials below cabinet rank. Bersamin even hinted that more courtesy resignations will be accepted soon.
Nais natin ipabatid. Hindi po natatapos sa pagsisilbi ng mga courtesy resignation sa mga pagtanggap at pagtanggi rito ng Pangulo. May natanggal, may nanatili. Sa mga nanatili, nasa kanila pa rin po ang tiwala ng Pangulo. Ngunit hindi ibig sabihin ay dapat maging kampante. There will be a continuing performance evaluation. They will always be on notice because they serve at the pleasure of the President. Mas mabilis at mas epektibo na paglilingkod para sa mga Pilipino ang nais ng ating Pangulo.
That was Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Malacañang on Thursday said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will take into consideration the economic implications of the proposed 200 peso across the board daily salary increase of minimum wage workers. In a Palace Press briefing, Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said that while the President wants to improve workers' conditions, he also has to weigh all aspects and concerns of all stakeholders. Castro said President Marcos would also consult the wage boards about the proposal for a minimum wage hike. The House of Representatives on Wednesday approved on third and final reading a measure seeking a 200 peso daily pay increase for minimum wage workers in the private sector. Castro said the proposal will be studied since a similar measure has yet to be passed by the Senate.
Ito lamang po ang mensahe ng Pangulo, and I quote, "We will look at the economic implications of this and how to resolve this with the opinion of the wage boards, since the wage boards are also the creations of the Congress." So nais po ng Pangulo na maibigay kung ano po ang makakabuti sa mga manggagawang Pilipino. Titignan ng lahat ng aspeto at ang concerns ng lahat ng stakeholders. Pag-aaralan pa po ito at nandiyan pa po ang Senado. Hindi pa po natatapos sa Senado ang usapin na yan. At katulad po ng sinabi ng ating Pangulo, ititignan po ang anumang economic implications patungkol po dito. Pero nais po ng Pangulo na maibigay ang nararapat at mas makakabuti sa manggagawang Pilipino.
That was Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Thursday, Malacañang expressed satisfaction over the ongoing negotiations between the Philippines and the United States amid the new trade policy under the Trump administration. Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said, talks between the Philippine delegation led by Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs Secretary Frederick Go and the U.S. Trade Representative or USTR are ongoing. Castro, however, told Palace reporters that she could not divulge additional information because of the confidentiality agreement between the two parties.
Actually, according to the Department of Trade and Industry and Office of the Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs, they are in constant communication with the U.S. Trade Representative. But they cannot divulge or give any details about this because we are covered by the confidentiality agreement. So hanggang dun lang po ang ating masasabi.
Philippine delegation is seeking tariff relief after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed a 17% reciprocal tariff on Philippine exports, a rate currently paused but replaced by a blanket 10% tariff for 90 days. While no final deal has been reached, Go earlier said the discussion signaled renewed momentum in strengthening the trade ties between the two countries.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Thursday, Malacañang said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has directed the Department of Trade and Industry or DTI to make sure that the price of school supplies is reasonable and affordable. In a press briefing, Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said, the DTI, upon the President's directive, released a comprehensive guide to enable the consumers to know the price of school items they need for the upcoming academic year. Citing the DTI's price guide, Castro said, prices of 29 school items have decreased compared to the previous year. She advised the public to check the price list of school supplies, which can be seen at the DTI website. The 2025 price guide covers 195 stock keeping units or SKUs across 12 product categories, including more variations in notebooks, pad paper, pencils, ball pens, crayons, and other writing essentials. The expansion helps parents and students find products that fit their needs and budget.
Iniutos ng Pangulo sa DTI na siguraduhin na naaayon ang mga school supplies sa tamang presyo. Kaya ang DTI sa pamumuno ni Secretary Roque ay nagsagawa ng inspeksyon sa mga pangunahing pamilihan, partikular na rito sa Divisoria. Mabilis na aksyon ang nais ng Pangulo para mabantayan at mapanatiling abot kaya ang mga gamit pang-eskwela para sa pamilyang Pilipino.
That was Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Thursday said the Marcos administration is committed to improving the country's road infrastructure and undertaking maintenance services to ensure road safety and reduce traffic violations and deaths. Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said, road improvements have been underway even before the implementation of the No Contact Apprehension Policy or NCAP. In a Palace Press briefing, Castro said, concerned agencies such as the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, the Department of Transportation, or DOTR, and the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, are taking appropriate steps to overhaul the road safety regulations.
Ang Pangulo po ay hindi natatapos lamang sa pagpaplano. Ngayon po ay umaaksyon po ang MMDA dyan, umaaksyon din po ang DPWH, at ang sabi rin po ng DOTR Secretary na si Sec Vince Tison ay tumutulong din po siya patungkol po dyan. Patuloy po ang pag-aayos po nito, hindi lamang po dahil sa NCAP, noon pa po inaayos-ayos na rin po ito.
With the implementation of the NCAP, the MMDA can record, review, and validate traffic violations through CCTV cameras. It is being implemented along Metro Manila's major thoroughfares like the Epifanio de los Santos Avenue or EDSA, Commonwealth Avenue, Quezon Avenue, Rojas Boulevard, and Taft Avenue.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news Thursday, Philippine Health Secretary Teodoro Herbosa said the Department of Health, or DOH, is ramping up efforts to curb the alarming rise in human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, cases in the country, as the agency pushes for a national public health emergency declaration and expands access to testing and treatment. Speaking at a press briefing in Malacañang, Herbosa said the health department has intensified the distribution of free antiretroviral drugs, or ARVs, to people living with HIV. From January to March 2025, the Philippines recorded an average of 57 new HIV cases per day, a 500% increase compared to the same period last year. Most of the newly reported infections were among males, with 33% aged 15 to 24 and 47% aged 25 to 34, according to DOH data. Herbosa said the president has instructed the DOH to streamline services for people living with HIV, or PLHIV, including launching appointment systems in key hospitals like San Lazaro and Fabella for easier access to treatment and consultation. Herbosa said HIV is no longer a death sentence, likening the viral disease to high blood or diabetes, which can be addressed through maintenance medication, allowing patients to live normally. The health chief also confirmed he has submitted a recommendation to the Office of the President to declare a national public health emergency on HIV, as advised by the Philippine National AIDS Council. Herbosa assured the public of sufficient ARV supplies in government hubs and added that a newly approved self-test HIV kit is now available for personal use, although reactive results still require confirmatory testing at DOH-accredited centers.
Dahil umabot na po sa 57 na kaso bawat araw ang nakikita nating positibo sa HIV mula Enero hanggang Marso nitong 2025 o nitong first quarter of this year, mas napaigting ng Department of Health ang pagbibigay ng libreng antiretroviral or ARV drugs sa ating mga kababayan na namumuhay na may HIV or people living with HIV. Ang bilin po ng Pangulong Marcos, padaliin ang pagbibigay ng serbisyong ito sa pamamagitan ng mas mabilis na proseso sa mga pangunahing ospital na puntahan ng mga taong namumuhay na may HIV. Kahapon, sinumulan na po natin ang patient appointment system naman sa San Lazaro nung isang linggo sa Pabella para sa mga buntis. Ito ay para madali ang makuha ang schedule ng mga kailangang magpakonsulta at kukuha ng gamot sa HIV. Sa sistemang ito, masisiguro din natin na regular na ang pagkonsulta ng mga persons living with HIV at regular na ding makukuha ang libreng maintenance ARV drugs para ma-manage ang kanilang kondisyon na nakaalay din para sa ating mga DOH, ang counseling at ang ating mga kababayan ukol sa mahabang pamumuhay ng mga taong may HIV. Bukod sa libreng ARV, libre rin po magbigay ng DOH ang HIV screening test sa iba't ibang HIV hubs kabilang ng San Lazaro Hospital. Pwede rin po magpa-schedule ng HIV confirmatory test. Dahil importante po na alam natin ang HIV status ng isang tao para mabigyan agad siya ng gamot at hindi na lumala ang HIV sakaling reactive po ang pasyente. Hindi na po death sentence ang HIV sa panahon ngayon. Kailangan lang po kumonsulta para magpa-test at screening maintenance. Maintenance lang ang kailangan po. Katapat niyan, para lang na siyang high blood or diabetes na basta meron kang gamot, tuloy-tuloy po ang magagawa. At ang DOH po, magagawa natin ito.
That was Department of Health Secretary Chodora Herbosa.
Dateline Malacañang.
In line with Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s directive to combat fake news and ensure that the public receives accurate and reliable information, Presidential Communications Office or PCO Secretary J. Ruiz underscored the vital role of Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, in preventing the spread of disinformation and misleading content online. During a hearing of the House Tri-Committee investigating fake news and online disinformation on Thursday, Ruiz shared his observation that even the government is defenseless when Meta refuses to take down false content. Ruiz recounted an incident where a supposed memorandum falsely attributed to the office of the executive secretary was circulated online. The PCO chief said Meta refused to take down the content despite a certification from the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT's Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, or CICC, that it was a fake memorandum. Ruiz said the dissemination of false narratives undermines public trust and can distort the government's efforts to address the people's needs. He said platforms like Meta must act responsibly and proactively in curbing fake content that misleads the public. Ruiz said that in Singapore, online platforms may be subject to penalties of up to 6% of their revenue should they be found responsible for disseminating disinformation, an approach that underscores the country's firm stance on digital accountability. The PCO secretary also warned of the profound consequences of unchecked fake news on the country's democratic process, especially during election periods.
Kasi ang nangyayari po, ang rinirecognize lang ng Meta is yung may mga regulators, Department of Finance, Department DTI dahil nga may issues sa mga consumers, consumer protection, tapos yung DMW. So pati po kami sa PCO, naalala ko nung naglabas po ng fake memo, may isang naglabas na fake memo na di umano galing sa Office of the Executive Secretary. Ngayon, sinabi ko sa CICC, sa Cybercrime and Investigation Coordinating Council, pare, national security concern na to. Pwede bang sabihan mo yung mga platforms, tanggalin agad yung memo na yan dahil fake news yan. Alam mo, sir, natanggal, hindi nila tinanggal. Ang reason ng mga platforms is that ito is freedom of expression. May community standards kami. ang bawat isang user, siya ang kumbaga accountable to his or her account. So, ano to? Are we at the mercy of the platforms? Bakit ganun? PCO na ako, Presidential Communications Office. Sinasabi ko ng National Security Concern, I was getting a certification, I had my certification from the CICC ng DICT, and yet, ayaw pa rin magtanggal. Dadaan pa raw ako ng fact-checker na third-party fact-checker. So, eventually po, ilang beses namin silang kinakausap. Sabi namin, hindi kayo dito naka-base, hindi pa kayo nagbabayad ng buwis, and yet, you don't regulate or stop fake news here in the Philippines. I just learned from the Minister of Information ng Singapore po that since 2019, they already have regulation against disinformation, misinformation, and fake news in their country. And the platforms follow them. May strict rules po yan. There's another law po na landmark law in the European Union, yung Digital Services Act, na nire-regulate din niya po. May penalties against platforms, social media platforms, na kapag nagpapalabas ka ng fake news, you will be penalized. Ang tinitira po nila yung penalties mataas po, 6% of profit po ang ginagawa nila. With the absence of a law, first of defining what fake news is, penalties, studies, wala tayong mapanghawakan. Kaya kumakalat ng ganyang karami yung fake news, katulad po nung nangyari nung last elections. In the last elections, many public servants, yung mga iba kasi, ilang buwan o ilang taon ng preparation na kakasira sa isang politiko, yun lang ginamit nila, disinformation, misinformation, fake news, laban sa kandidato. Natalo o kaya bumaba yung kanilang support. Kasi dahil nga dun sa paninira, and yet hindi ma-stop eh. Kasi nga, usually ang ginagawa ng ibang mga politiko or ibang mga kalaban, nag-hire yan ng trolls, cyber warriors. So, sa kakasira, lahat naman tayo nasa cyber world na yon. Dalawa ng mundo ng Pilipino eh. Yung real world, yung cyber world. Most of people now, probably half of their time, spare time, napupunta sa cyber world. Ito na yung nakikita nila. So, nai-influensyahan yung utak ng tao. Paano kung ang tao, binibase niya ang decision niya sa mga fake news o kasinungalingan? Isipin mo kung ang mga botante natin, boboto, base sa impormasyon ng kasinungalingan, anong klaseng generation, anong klaseng democracy meron tayo? Another threat po, if you do not put a stop to fake news, is that eventually, our people will no longer decide based on informed decisions, but based on lies. We agree that there is a right to information, but that right should be accurate information. In the Philippines, ang pangkontra po natin sa fake news is yung cybercrime law pa rin, na dapat may intent. Dito sa atin, wala pa po tayong batas na dapat tapusin itong laban natin sa fake news. The fight against fake news is not just for the present, but it's for the future of our country.
That was Presidential Communications Office or PCO Secretary J. Ruiz.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, for foreign exchange rates, according to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP, as of Thursday, June 5th, the United States dollar stands at 55 pesos and 79 centavos, the Japanese yen at 39 centavos, Singaporean dollar at 43 pesos and 37 centavos, South Korean won at 4 centavos, and a Chinese yuan is at 7 pesos and 77 centavos. In other foreign currencies, The Hong Kong dollar is at 7 pesos and 11 centavos. The British pound is at 75 pesos and 63 centavos. 1 euro is equivalent to 63 pesos and 70 centavos. 40 pesos and 81 centavos for the Canadian dollar, while the Saudi Arabian rial has a value of 14 pesos and 88 centavos.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.